that we should probably kick off and expect a few more people to be jumping in and joining us as we're going along. Aleks, if you're happy with that.
Fine, let's do it.
Okay, lovely. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us first and foremost. Much appreciated. This is one of our skills development webinars, which is obviously on the subject of dealing with narcissists, bullying and bad scheduling. We are very blessed to be joined by a wonderful presenter, psychologist, life coach this evening, and I will let Aleks introduce himself shortly. Before we begin, I just wanted to let you know that we are recording this session. We will be making it available for anybody that doesn't manage to make it this evening for a week afterwards, and there'll be an email follow-up after the session. For anybody that doesn't know anything about the British Film Designers Guild, because we are open this evening to the art department in the wider sense, we are, I'm going to be admitting people throughout this, aren't I? We are a flourishing professional group of talented individuals who have over 600 accredited memberships now of skilled creatives and production designers, spanning the various branches of the art department in film, TV and commercials. We were formed with the aim of raising the standards and profile of the art department and protecting the interests of our members over 75 years ago. Our core principles still apply today, and we are a thriving and evolving creative community. So we're very excited about our event programme this year. We've got some wonderful things coming up. I do hope that you stay tuned. And one more thing I have to say before I hand over to Aleks. We have got a Q&A functionality on this piece of software. So if you do want to add or send in a question for Aleks at any point, there's a little 3-shaped icon on the bottom right of your screen, which is a triangle, a square and a circle. If you click on that, you'll see an option for Q&A. Please do feel free to send in your questions. And as Aleks comes to the end of his talk, you'll be able to answer as much as he's got the opportunity to get through in the time that we've got available. So on that point, let me hand straight over to Aleks, and I will take a step back. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Bimla. Thank you so much, everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful evening. Normally, this is where I say hello, good evening, and people say good evening back. So I'm just going to assume you're doing that within the comfort of your own home. So today we're going to talk about dealing with narcissists, bullying, and bad scheduling. And all of this information, everything I put together comes from surveys that were done. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. So my name is Aleks George Srbinoski, best-selling author of Maximum Mental Health and other sort of books. I'll talk about that later. I'm a clinical and life coaching psychologist. Clinical means dealing with all the difficult stuff in life: anxiety, depression, trauma, relationships, when things go wrong. Life coaching is much more about how do we make things even better. It's about peak performance. It's about developing yourself. It's about thriving, flourishing. So I like both those fields, and I've got 15 years experience dealing in both of those areas. So let's start. So I want you to remember this image. You'll know what it is a little bit later. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I really appreciate it. Obviously, you're all busy. You've all got important lives to do, things to do, and you're here now. You're with me, and I really appreciate that. I really, really do. In particular, I want to thank Bimla, Ali, both of those people from the BFDG have worked really hard to make this happen. And a special thank you to Daniel Taylor, who actually I discussed this idea with quite a while ago, and he really pushed it forward and he really made it happen. So I really want to thank you. So thank you so much, you three in particular. Also, thank you to everyone that did the survey. So there was 24 people that did the survey, and I built this presentation based on what you want, based on what you need. So I want to thank you so much for that as well, because that makes this whole presentation make sense, makes it easy, makes me hopefully allow me to give you what you want. So is this one of those typical mental health talks? You know, we're going to talk about depression. We're going to talk about sadness. We're going to talk about how messed up it is, the stigma. And the answer is no. We're not going to talk about any of those things, right? In a way, you can understand why at the end. Now, that doesn't mean you can't ask me about those things. Please do ask me about those questions, write them down. I'll answer them at the end. But if you ever see those old Bruce Lee movies, he had this quote where he sort of says, it's the art of fighting without fighting. Well, this is the art of mental health without talking about mental health. And you can understand why I talk about, why I'm saying that later on. So that's me. I love speaking. I love speaking in front of people. I haven't done much in the last couple of years. This is actually the first time I've done it where I can't see my audience, where I can't feel my audience. So I'm just imagining you're there with me, and I really hope you are. So that's me speaking. As you see, I love to do it in all kinds of different contexts. I love to be interactive with people. So this is all a bit uncommon for me, but that's fine. I've written a few different best-selling books on entrepreneurship, and in particular on maximum mental health, on happiness, those kind of areas. And I was also the principal psychologist on the Dr. Christian Will See You Now TV show in the first season. So that was me there, as you can see. And that's me there with my special therapy face, where I'm, very focused and listening intently, apparently. And because I am a narcissist, which you didn't really know it yet, I'm just going to leave it on that image for the rest of the presentation. So there'll be no more images. So I don't know if you're laughing or not at that joke, but I'm hoping you are. It's not true. Let's keep going. So let's talk about the dream. So as I said, 24 of you answered my surveys, which I really, really appreciate because it gave me an idea of what you're dealing with. And the survey's results, here's the dream: to work in a highly creative and richly supportive environment. Sounds wonderful. To be challenged within the boundaries of reasonable working hours and respected regardless of gender or role. These are kind of the what I realized what people want. And so I was able to summarize all of these wants into the 3 C's. I came up with 3 C's, and they were basically kept coming up: collaboration, really wanting to be with people, connecting with people the right way, and looking out for each other, caring for each other. Communication, communicating well, not holding things back. If there's an issue, just talk it out, work it out, improve things. And also competence. You want to work with people that know what they're doing and are confident in what they're doing and are collaborative in their competence and confidence. So those are the 3 C's. That's what people really want. Here's also the reality for a lot of people in their situation. And that is often overcoming the toxic and grossly chaotic working conditions, featuring far too many of the 3 Ds. So these I also summarized, keep coming up again and again. They were demoralizing, demanding, and disrespecting. So once again, these were the things that people were really worried about, concerned about, things that they were experiencing at work. So what's the solution? So as you might have seen in the brochure that came out, I came up with 5 key points I want to focus on in this presentation. First is rapid methods for settling the mind and body in high pressure scenarios. Second is to recognize your own value and how to demonstrate it to others. Third is to turn potential conflict win-win communication. Fourth is 3 ways to navigating the unreasonable demands of narcissists. Fifth is to befriend and neutralize a bully, no matter your role. And we're going to do some Q&A. Now, what's important to understand here is that this whole talk is based on principles, because the principles are crucial, because the principles are the same no matter who you are, no matter where you are. So whether you're the one in the plane at the top, flying high, super duper powerful director, whether you're the intern just getting started, whether you're somewhere in the middle, principles are always the same. Human nature is always the same. First principle. There's going to be 5 principles I'm going to go through, and then we'll talk about how to apply them. Number 1, safety first. Safety first, safety first, safety first, safety first. Where does stress come from? So you're in the jungle, the tiger comes up near you. What do you do? And the answer is one of 3 things. If the tiger is far enough away from you, you'll run away, right? That's flight. If the tiger is near you, but you have a weapon, you will probably fight. If you have no weapon and it's near you, you will probably freeze. Cover your vital organs, protect yourself, seem unassuming, and therefore, hopefully, the tiger will leave you alone. So fight, flight, freeze. This is an instinctive response that is in all of us. And it makes sense whenever we detect a physical threat that we would respond in one of those 3 ways. Now, what about an emotional threat? You see, it's not just physical threats, it's any kind of psychological or emotional threat. that mechanism, the fight, flight, freeze response, also gets activated to a certain extent, depending on the risk or the intensity of the threat. So what are our psychological, emotional fears? Well, fear of embarrassment, fear of rejection, fear of loneliness, fear of not being good enough, fear of not being loved, loneliness, abandonment. All of those things are our emotional, psychological fears. And in particular, it all encompasses one category of the unknown. We're afraid of the unknown. Whenever we experience anything that's somewhat unknown, depending on the level of unknownness, depends on how much that fight or flight mechanism gets triggered. Now, psychologically, flight is avoidance. So whenever we avoid something, that's flight. And that's our most common response. And that's because it's the safest. The further you are away from the threat, the safer you are. If you don't do the thing that you're supposed to do, well, you're safe from it, at least in the short term. Sometimes we just get angry, frustrated, annoyed. That's fight. Sometimes we freeze. We don't know what we're doing. That's freeze. So yeah, fight, flight, freeze, all those mechanisms. It's not just physical danger. It's any kind of danger. That mechanism is always in play to a certain degree. Depending on the intensity of the trigger will determine how much we experience fight, flight, freeze. And when you experience fight, flight, freeze, your whole body changes. So endorphins start pumping, heart rate increases, breathing changes. And most importantly, you're not designed to think clearly when you're, depending on how high the threat is, you're designed to run away or to fight. So that's why the more anxious someone gets, the more, the more anxious someone gets, the more kind of unable they are to think clearly, because resources are actually moving away from the thinking part of the brain to the emotion centers, and oxygen's moving to the muscles so that you can fight, flight, freeze. Even though it's psychological, you still have that same mechanism in play. Now, there's one other element here. So forget the tiger for a minute. Let's say the tiger's gone, at least for now. Let's talk about pleasure. So imagine you're in the jungle, once again, and this time, in the distance, you see someone coming towards you. And this person is the most stunning, most beautiful, most amazing person you've ever seen in your life. This is a really good-looking individual, and they're coming towards you. And they're smiling. And they are looking very interested in you, right? So, you know what? They're naked. So there's this beautiful, naked, highly enticing person coming towards you, smiling. Things are looking very, very good. And then a tiger growls. Where does your attention go? Right? And so the answer, I'm sure, is to the tiger, right? So this is important because even though we want pleasure, we seek pleasure, pain is the stronger drive. Avoidance of pain is the stronger drive. And that's because survival is our number one goal. So the avoidance of pain is the stronger drive, even though we want pleasure. So what does that mean? It means in all your communication, when you're about to do something important, when you're about to talk to people, when you're about to deal with difficult conflict, or even in a simple scenario, it's always safety first. The person has to feel safe if you want them to actually be responsive, to have their mind online, to be able to communicate with you well. Now, that's number one. Number two is praise pays. Welcome to this world, this beautiful, disgusting, amazing, filthy, wonderful creature that was once you. Now, I'm going to ask Bimla a question in just a moment. So here's what I'm going to ask. Imagine there's an orphanage, and in this orphanage, there are babies. And the babies are raised by the sisters, the nurses, whoever, and the nurses are given very specific instructions. The instructions are, with these babies, we want you to make sure that all of their physical needs are met. So if the baby's hungry, feed it. If the baby needs to be burped, burp it. If it's cold, put a blanket on it. If it needs to be changed, change it. So do that. Take care of all of the baby's physical needs. However, what we don't want you to do is really play or interact with the baby. We don't want you to smile with the baby. We don't want you to coochie coochie coo. We don't want you to tickle. We just want you to take care of the physical needs of these babies. So my question to you, Bimla, is what do you think happens to these babies?
What in now, as in what do I think?
In terms of them growing up, like how do you think does anything happen to them? Like by having only the physical needs met and nothing else, do you think anything sort of happened with these babies as they grew up?
I think they turn into cold and unemotional beings. No nurture, right? Because surely you've got to nurture them and give emotional care.
Right. Okay, good. And I want everyone else thinking about this question as well. What happens to these babies? Now, I'm going to put up the next slide. And this is the only slide where there's nothing written on it because you don't need to have anything written on it. So you ready for this, Bimmer? Here it is. That's what happened.
Nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
So they died. They died. And this really happened. This happened in the Romanian orphanages in the 80s. Where the nurses were given strict instructions, take care of all the physical needs, but nothing else. And these babies died. Now, not every baby died, but statistically, compared to other orphanages, much more died. However, they didn't die physically. They still died in many other ways, as you were suggesting. So those that survived, many had every kind of issue, retardation you can think of, physical retardation, they didn't grow as much, mental disabilities, difficulties, emotionally terrible, like attachment issues, all kinds of, every issue you can think of, you name it, they had it, right? So what does that mean? It means babies need praise, right? And what praise is a little bit of love, little action of love. That's what praise is. And what people often do not understand is this. It's exactly the same, right? Just because we're adults doesn't mean we don't need praise. Doesn't mean we don't need these little bits of acknowledgement, there's little bits of kudos, there's little bits of recognition. All of those things are like psychological air to us. That's why we exist. We exist to feel that there's little bits of love. Right? Obviously, the bigger bits of love were possible as well, but at least there's little bits. And so this is really, really important, because this is what we need. And when I went through the surveys and talking about toxic environments and criticism and game playing, all that sort of stuff, well, that is the exact opposite of what this is, right? So now I sent you an image at the start. Let's go back to it. And I call this my praise system, or GPS, right? And the GPS praise system stands for genuine, present, and specific. So it's fine to say to someone, well, it's not fine. You can say to someone, well done, good job. But if you don't mean it, if it's not genuine, people know. They read right through it. So you're better off saying nothing, right? The other thing is it has to be present. You have to get their attention. You have to be with the person in that moment, capture that moment, right? Look at their eyes and really feel it with them. And then most importantly, when you want to praise someone, is you want to be specific, right? So saying good job, well done, it's okay. But people can generally more easily ignore that or reject it. It's like, oh yeah, good job, whatever, yeah, sure. But if you say, hey, this is fantastic, the way you put this report together, especially those 3 bullet points at the end, you really summarized it just right. And those charts, the color scheme and the way that you put the percentages right, it's just really, really pops out, really stands out. So that bit of praise is now genuine, it's present, and specific. And people can't reject specific very much, right? They can try, but it's much harder to reject something that, when you get their attention and you've specifically told them something actually did, that cannot be denied. And that's those little bits of love, those little bits of praise that we all need. So that is principle number 2. Praise, when done well, pays. Number 3, PF. Now, we've got some questions here, and you should, Bimmer, can you please release these questions as I speak about each one? So I'm going to say what PF is at the end, obviously. Here's the question. It's about your life and whether you're living with the sword or the shield. Are you living by the sword or the shield? How do you live? Right? This is what this is about. So here's the first question, right? And I want everyone please to answer this. It's very simple. It's either A or B, 1 or 2. First question. Would you rather be less stressed or more calm? Okay? Less stressed or more calm. So please just answer. It doesn't really matter what you say. It's fine. Whatever you pick is not a problem. So would you rather be less stressed or more calm? So please answer that. We'll move on to the next one. The next one is, would you rather be less anxious or more confident? So once again, less anxious or more confident? Okay, less anxious, more confident. What would you rather be? A, less anxious, B, more confident. Next one. Would you rather be less fat, right? Hopefully not that bad. Would you rather be less fat or more trim? This is number 3, A or B. Less fat, A, more trim, B. What would you rather be? Last one. Would you rather have less conflict in your life, at work, job, whatever, at home, less conflict or more harmony? Would you rather have less conflict or more harmony? Now, if you might have noticed something really strange about these questions, and that is they're kind of the same, but they're kind of not, which I'll explain, right? So if we were a robot, if you were a completely logical being, then these questions wouldn't matter. They're exactly the same. If we have a continuum of less fat and more trim, or less stress and more calm, whatever, right? You're on a continuum. If you're less fat, then you're more trim. If you're more trim, you're less fat. So it's the same thing, but it's not, because we're not completely rational. So let me put it this way. Imagine you have a goal of becoming less fat. That is your goal. So you're working really hard and you achieve that goal. You now are less fat. Let me ask you something. What are you still? What are you still? You've achieved the goal of becoming less fat. What are you still? You are still fat. You're just less fat, but you're still fat. Your identity hasn't changed. So this is the way you craft a goal where even if you win, you lose, right? Even by becoming less fat, you're still fat. So you're going to become much more demotivated and you're going to give up much more quickly. If your goal is to become more trim, whether you currently see yourself as trim or not, you're in the process of becoming trimmer, right? That is the objective. Now, there's 3 things here that are important. Number 1, I use the word trim and not skinny. Why? Well, can you be too skinny? Sure, of course you can. That's what eating disorders are. Can you be too trim? Not really. I've never seen someone and I've gone, that person's too trim. Never seen it, right? Can you be too healthy? Can you be too fit? No. So it's important to consider the words you use when you set a goal. What is the actual word you're using? Trim is much better than skinny, right? Number 2, what this is all about is the direction of the goal, which I think you're starting to see. When you are, we talk about avoiding pain and seeking pleasure. And all the A's in these examples are pain-driven, right? All the B's are pleasure-driven. But pain is the stronger drive. Pain is a natural drive. So it takes time, it takes training to develop the idea of focusing what you do want instead of what you don't want, right? And why is that important? Well, because when you are becoming, let's use a different example. Let's use less conflict, more harmony. It's the same with all of them, right? But let's just mix it up. When you're focused on having more harmony in your relationships and whatever, as opposed to less conflict, well, you can't be harmonious and having conflict at the same time. So obviously, by focusing on harmony, you're obviously not having conflict. But when you have harmony, you have more than just the absence of conflict, right? You have fun, you have friendship, you have enjoyment, you have wonderful experiences. When you have being calm, focusing on calmness is more than just not being stressed, having less stress. When you're calm, you're also creative, you're also blissful, you're also open, alert, awake, vibrant. Being confident is much more about, gives you more than just not being anxious. And being trim, fit, healthy is so much more than just not being fat. So this is a crucial thing to keep in mind, right? This goes back to, you want to be pleasure driven, right? You want to focus on what you do want. This is a crucial element of psychology because this is one of those core concepts of optimism, right? And optimism is the biggest predictor of life success, which I might mention again a little bit later. So do you want to live by the sword or the shield, right? The sword is your attacking life. You're going after it. You're focusing on what you do want, right? The shield is trying not to lose, just to survive. And when you're focused on surviving, it's a very different experience than focusing on wanting to be your best, to do your best, to win, so to speak. And when I say win, I don't mean crush others. I mean win the situation, to be your best, right? So positive focus, especially on what you do want. That's principle number 3. Number 4, emotions are contagious. Now, you look at this picture, and what's interesting here is, even though the picture is very much centered on the woman, it's actually the man that's emotionally leading the example, is actually in emotional control. She is responding to him, right? His hands are up, he's obviously saying something, and she's smiling, laughing, staring back at him. So clearly, he is leading this discussion. And emotions are contagious. What does that mean? It means all kinds of negative, toxic, painful emotions are contagious. But then all kinds of pleasurable, fun, joyous, weird, funny emotions are also contagious. And what's important to understand here is it's emotions and not status that leads others. So whenever there's two people, or it could be one person and another, or one person to a group, whoever has the strongest emotion leads. Whoever has the strongest emotion leads. So you have one person who is mildly happy, you have another person who is very sad. The mildly happy person will start to become more sad. Flip it around, you have someone that's moderately happy or quite happy, someone who's just mildly sad. The sad person's going to start to feel happier as they're interacting. Now, that doesn't mean negative emotion should always be avoided. I mean, sometimes when someone's feeling sad, you want to feel sad with them so you can understand with them, so you can rapport with them, and then hopefully lead them to somewhere better. So it's not that you should always try and ignore or overpower someone who feels sad, far from it. But in most interactions in life, in most interactions in your day, you don't have the time, nor do you want to try and understand the deep level of what the person's feeling. You just want to lead them to a good place. And so that's why I mean by emotions are contagious. The more positive emotion you present, the more powerful it is, and the more you lead the situation. And I say emotions, not status. So what does that mean? Often in group, our differentials based on status. So and this is bad, this is bad, this is rubbish, and everyone feels down, right? And that's because they're defaulting their own emotions to based on status, rather than recognizing that, well, that person can feel what they want. If I can generate in myself an even greater level of calmness, an even greater level of self-assuredness, then that person will not affect me because my emotion is stronger than theirs. And if I was to actually interact with that person, even though I have lower status than them, I could, if done correctly, lead them, because emotions overpower everything else, right? But most people give up that idea or don't even understand that idea because of status. That person's the big dog, whatever, and they just drop their status immediately, and therefore they've already lost any potential of emotional leadership, not understanding that emotions are contagious, not status. Number 4, emotions are contagious. Last one, the core of confidence. Just want to quickly talk about the core of confidence. So imagine you get a present, and it's good to be giving. Obviously, it's nice to be giving. It's a good thing to be giving, but it can sometimes be a problem. So imagine this: I have a pen, and I tell you this is an amazing pen. This is the pen that it's all gold. It's a beautiful pen. It was used to, I don't know, sign in World War II. So it's this amazing, incredible pen. I say to you, do you want this pen? And you're going to say, well, yeah, sounds awesome. Yeah, I'll have it. And I said, well, before I give it to you, let me give you this other pen. This pen is also really good. It's really good. It's gold. Also used to sign the decoration of another war. And it's really, really awesome. And I want you to have this pen. And you're like, okay, yeah, all right. So I'm going to give you, well, hold on. Let me give you this pen. This pen's really, really good. I want you to have this pen too. And actually, let me give you this pen. And let me give you this pen. Please, just take all these pens. Really, take these pens. You're going to love them. They're really, really good. And so the question is, what's happening now? And what's happening now is, as I keep giving and giving and giving, I'm devaluing what was originally there. Maybe these pens are gold, but the sheer way I'm presenting this, they're starting to become devalued. And so there is an issue with overgiving, which I'm going to talk about in a second. So let's go back to this, and I say to you, okay, I have this pen, it's gold, it's beautiful. It was used to sign the ending of the war. Do you want it? And you're like, yeah, I want it. And I go, well, before you do it, there's a few things I want you to think about doing for me. And you're going to go, I'm listening because I want that pen. And that's the point. So there's nothing wrong with giving in a way, but you can overgive, right? And it's like this. I mean, does this picture look better? It's like, oh, a present, or this present's too much. It's like, wow, I've got 9 of them. It's too much, right? So here's the concept. it's about wanting to be liked, right? So there are obviously clear things that interfere with people's confidence: negativity, criticism, doubt, fear. They're obvious, right? And there are ways around it. But what's the more hidden sort of one is this idea of wanting to be liked. I want you to like me. I really, really want you to like me. I don't want to confront you. I don't want to challenge you. I just want you to like me. And if you like me, then hopefully, if you like me, you'll be kind to me, right? And this is not going to work. Your job in life is not to be liked, not as the goal. Your job is to be respected, okay? You want to be respected. Now, here's the funny part. When you're respected, most of the time, you're liked as well, right? But the goal is to be respected, right? And we're going to talk about how do you develop that a little bit later. But I just want you to make it important. So the most important things in life are two things. People often talk about it's important to love yourself. It's important to be kind to yourself. Absolutely. But it's also just as important to respect yourself. So when you believe in what you do, and although you're not perfect, you're not supposed to be perfect, you know, you respect your effort, you respect your attempts, you respect your boundaries, you respect what you are about and what you stand for. So that's the core of confidence, this idea of self-respect, or, you know, setting up the boundaries to be respected by others, which we'll all get to soon. So that's the core of confidence. Now, we're done. Let's talk about the practical stuff. You're going to start seeing how these 5 principles start to interplay as we answer each of these questions. So first thing is settling body and mind. I'm going to give you 3 rapid ways to settle your body and your mind. 3 rapid relaxations. So everyone do this with me. I can't see you. I can't guide you that well, but we're going to do it anyway. So the first one is super, super simple. Here's what I want you to do. So I'm going to do it and you can do it with me. You're going to do a double deep breath in and a long breath out. So let's say you've only got like 20 seconds to just calm yourself. This is what you do. You take a deep breath in as much as you can until you think you can't do any more. You sort of pause. Then you breathe in a bit more, and then you breathe out as slowly as possible. All right? So it's a double deep breath in and a really long, slow breath out. Now, you can breathe just your nose and mouth only. It doesn't really matter. Whatever is most comfortable for you in terms of this. I mean, generally, nose only is best in terms of all kinds of breathing, but if you've got blockages or it's too hard, just do whatever's easier. So here we go. I'm going to demonstrate this to you. Please do it with me. I'm imagining you're there with me. I hope you are. So breathing in. And more. And then out slowly. And that should get you in a good place. It's got me in a good place. All right? I'm going to get you to do it one more time. This time, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to kind of, I don't know, psychologically coach you along. So once again, breathe in, all the way in, deeply in, breathe it in, all the way till you're full, and then a little bit more, breathe in, and then just out, slowly let it out, all the way out, nice and out, sink into the chair, sink into everything, let it out all the way out. And even though I can't see you, I'm sure you're feeling pretty calm. Now, if you wanted to sort of extend this sort of feeling, the next option is rhythmic 3-second breathing. So you're just going to breathe in and out as deeply as you can, fully in for 3 seconds, fully out for 3 seconds. So like a balloon, one third full, 2/3 full, then back down 2/3, 1/3 empty, fully in, fully out. Just going to do 2 of these with you. Ready? So shoulders back, head up always, so you can breathe deeply. Breathing in, out, and again, out. Okay, and obviously you can continue that if you want to. So that's the second one. And then the third one, it's a variation of that. It's called box breathing. It's 4 seconds in, hold for 4, 4 seconds out, hold for 4. So let's do that. I'm just going to do one cycle of this. Breathing in. Okay, and there you go. And obviously you can keep doing any of those breathings, the number 2 or number 3, as you want, for as long as you want. The good thing is they're quite covert, easily done. Now, I've got a couple of videos that outline specifically how to do those two breathing exercises properly. just email me if you want at the end of our talk, and I'll send you the links. So no problem. If you want more training in that, you can get it. No issues there. Now, number 2, demonstrating your value. So here you want to prime your confidence and intent. Okay. Number 1, breathe to settle yourself, feel safe. Remember, always number 1, safety first. Safety first. Always number 1. That's how you bring yourself into a place of safety. You've settled yourself. You're calm. You're safe in the moment. Safety first. Always psychological principle number 1. Number 2, praise yourself, right? So be kind, be present, and even access a previous specific examples of success and just kind of go through it in your head a little bit. So I can't speak to any of you right now, but I just use my example. So before this talk, I breathed to settle myself, and I praised myself. I said, okay, Aleks, you're going to do a presentation. You've been working on this for months, and you are ready. You're going to do a really good job because you're ready. You've done all the preparation. You like presenting. It's fun to you. You enjoy it. So it's going to be great. Let's do this, right? That's the kind of thing that's going through my head, which outlines number 3, focus on what you do want. I'm going to answer the brackets in a minute. Focus on what you do want, right? Notice what I was saying to myself. I wasn't saying, don't get anxious, don't be scared, don't fidget, don't frown. I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying what I do want, be calm, have fun, enjoy yourself. You are prepared. Do what you do best, right? Etc. So focus on what you do want. Now, if you're going to speak to someone else, you also want to focus on what you do want from that encounter. So that's where we talk about prepare agreeable, solution-focused, and inclusive we-us language. So what does that mean? So agreeable, solution-focused, you're going to see that again and again as through all these examples. But inclusive we-us language, what that means is if there's a problem, right? And let's say you are 0% responsible for this problem, and you are 0% responsible or expected to fix it. It doesn't matter. You can always use inclusive language. You can say, well, there's this issue here. How do you think we're going to solve it? What can we do? It's been brought to our attention. What are we going to do about it? How are we going to solve this, right? Even if you know, and even if the other person knows, you're not going to do anything. It doesn't matter. You're making them feel safe. You're making them feel included. You're on the same team, right? So that's what I mean by we-us language. You always want to use we-us type of language whenever possible, even if you've got nothing to do with it. Right? It doesn't matter. You're still a human. You're still on the same team, and that's important. So, talk about win-win communication. So many people talked about, I'm afraid of confrontation. I don't like confronting people. Well, this isn't about confronting. It's about communicating. And so here, we're going to emotionally lead with agreeable solution focus. Once again, this idea of solution focus. Solution focus just means focusing on what you do want, using the kind of language of what you do want. So immediately take emotional lead. That's the first step. If you're going to come up with someone and speak to them, whether it's about a problem or whether it's not about a problem, whether it's about anything, you always want to take emotional lead as much as possible. So smile, say, hi, how you doing? Hey, guess what? There's this thing I want to talk to you about. Have you got a few minutes, right? I don't want to come in and say, oh, listen, can we speak for a few minutes? There's something I need to speak. You don't want that, right? They feel unsafe, right? Take emotional lead and show them that it's safe. Even if you're going to talk about something difficult, it's always safe. Say, hey, I've got something I really want to talk about. There is an issue, there's a problem, but I know we're going to solve something we're going to figure out together. So come on, let's sort this out now, right? Have you got a minute? Yeah, well, yeah, I guess I do, because you're taking a positive safety kind of emotional lead kind of approach. Now, if someone comes to you with a problem, well, you always want to empathize with that problem, right? So you want to be safety first. Once again, safety. You want to empathize. So someone says, the director's being so horrible to me, and you say, well, look, I mean, I really understand that directors sometimes that they do that. They can be really harsh and unfair, and it really sucks when they do that. But you know what? We're going to figure out how to solve this. Now, whether it's you need to speak to the director, or whether you just need to develop other tools to deal with them, we're going to figure this out. So don't worry, I'm on your side. We're going to work this out, right? So there you go. The idea of communicating, where it's always about we and us, right? Even if you're fine with the director, even if you've got the best relationship ever with them, it doesn't matter. You're helping your colleague. You're helping each other. There's always a we, even if it's not about you. And to further enhance that idea, you can GPS praise them, based on previous successes for them to solve. So you say, well, look, you've dealt with difficult directors before. You've dealt with this guy before or this girl before. Right? You know what to do. Right? What did you do last time? How did you figure it out? Or you can tell them, well, I remember last time you did this. What you did is you just decided to speak more with emails, and then you were just more focused when you spoke to them, and you made the communication much shorter, and that worked really well for you. Isn't that right? So yeah, that's what it did. Perfect. Well, let's do that. I know we can do this. You're going to be fine, right? So that's kind of the idea here. Is, when you know the person, even if you don't know the person, it doesn't matter so much. You can always say, you know what, I know you're going to figure this out. I can tell. I got a feeling you're going to figure it out, and I'm going to help you. We'll figure it out together. What do you need? So that's kind of the idea of this solution-focused mentality, this idea of us, we can solve it, even if it's got nothing to do with you. It doesn't matter, right? You're all a team. You're all on the same team, which is team humanity. Now, overcoming narcissists legally. So as tempting as this image is, this is generally unacceptable according to current law. Maybe it'll change. Who knows? So 3 ways of navigating the unreasonable demands of narcissists. ASF, which is this idea of agreeable solution focus with boundaries and a paper trail. This will all make sense. Don't worry if you're a bit confused. So paper trail, always have a paper trail. What does that mean? If you're going to deal with a narcissist, a bully, anyone that's difficult, right? Always pre-advise and expectations in writing. So, hi, I know we've got a meeting tomorrow, and last time we spoke, you wanted to work on A, B, and C. So this is what I've done in regards to A. This is what I've done in regards to B. This is what I've done in regards to C. Thank you very much. Looking forward to tomorrow. Bye-bye. Off you go. After the meeting, same thing. Okay, great meeting. It was nice to speak to you. Based on the meeting, you want to look at D, E, and F. So I'm going to look at D. Here's what I'm doing E. Here's what I'm doing F. And I'll let you know as I go. Looking forward to the next meeting. Bye-bye. Off you go. Once again, paper trail. Paper trail. So whenever someone accuses you, probably unfairly, of you haven't done this, you haven't done that, you may or may not decide to bring up these emails, but if you have to, you will. So it's just a good way of, and also it sets their expectation, right? You've reminded them. And even if you said, did you get my email? I said, no, I didn't see email. I said, okay, no problem. Well, I did send an email, right? And you just leave it there, right? So it just gives you that safety, which you need within yourself often. You want to be agreeable without actually agreeing. In other words, you want to casually defend your evidence. You want to be agreeable in the sense is you want to agree to the problem, that there is a problem, but you don't want to actually agree that it's your fault, unless it is actually your fault. That's a different issue. But we're dealing with narcissists, bullies, where often it's not your fault. They're just trying to one-up you. I'm trying to overpower you. So it's about being agreeable without actually agreeing, which I'm going to explain how to do that very shortly, right? It's about casually defending your evidence. You're going to casually defend yourself, your evidence, and you're going to maintain a positive response-able attitude. Response-able. What does that mean? So you're not responsible, right? And you know you're not responsible, but you're always response-able. You're always able to respond if you want to. And this is how, and there's a way to do that. So no matter who said what, we will solve it. It's that kind of attitude. It's like, okay, maybe this happened. No matter, we're going to figure this out. We're going to solve this. Befriending bullies is the final chapter. It's all about response-able deflection. Response-able deflection. That's kind of what it comes down to. So what does that mean? It means getting them on side eventually, but I'll talk about that in a second, right? So, just like the matador, you're going to be a matador. You're going to be letting the bull come close, and you're going to be deflecting the bull. Now, unlike the matador, you are not going to slaughter the bull. Okay, so that's a good thing, right? I have a strict no slaughter policy in any of my trainings. So if you're there to slaughter people, as tempting as it is, that's not what we're about. Instead, the idea is to befriend the bull. The idea is that the bull is so exhausted going after you that eventually just gives up and sits down. And, you sit down with the bull next to it, you give it a beer, and you have a beer, and you take it easy. That's kind of the idea, so to speak. So, bullies. Only respect people with high standards and strong boundaries, but are so insecure that they only respond reasonably, most of the time, to indirect challenges. Right? This is very important, okay? So what does that mean? Everyone should save face, right? Bullies and narcissists need to feel safe too. Remember, safety first. These principles are universal, whether someone's a narcissist, a bully, or a kind, empathic, good-natured person, right? Everyone wants to save face, especially bullies and narcissists, but you also want to save face. You do not want to be taken advantage of. So what we're trying to do is your job is not to overly prove you are right. but to remain the most effective and classiest person in the room. That's your job, right? You want to be effective and classy, and you want to take it to the point where you could go in for the kill, and then you go in for harmony. That's what you want to do, right? Because if you're going for the kill, you're going to have conflict back, and that's not what you want with bullies. Now, there are many ways to deal with bullies, right? What I'm trying to do here today is give you my most effective method of trying to get through these situations as quickly and as simply as possible. So this isn't about righteousness. This isn't about this person's clearly doing the wrong thing. Should you bring it up to, you know, superiors and stuff? And maybe you should, right? But what I'm talking about is for people that just, right, I've got this person, I've got to deal with them. I want to try and deal with them as quickly, as efficiently, as effectively as possible. That's what this kind of approach is about. So befriending a bully process. Empathize with their intention. Stay calm, but be agreeable without agreeing. Okay, that's what it means by empathizing with their intention. Ask for specific proof of what you have been accused of, right? So, oh, what actually happened? But then quickly move on to state how you will solve the problem, even if there's no proof against you, even if you didn't do it, even if it's not your thing. You're still going to be a solution-focused problem solver. That's your mentality. Let's use some examples here. False accusation 1. You're always late. Response. Well, it's important that we all do our fair share and set a good example. I'm empathizing with the problem. I was 19 minutes late today, but I also worked 35 minutes over yesterday. However, it is important to be on time. Do you have any other specific examples of me being late? It says, oh, yeah, but I don't have the dates, right? It's like, okay, no problem. Well, I can't really recall any, but I have to check my diary too. But if you do come across them, please bring them to my attention. Either way, it is important to be on time, and that is always my goal. There's a solution-focused intention. I've protected myself. I'm not saying, I'm not apologizing. And I'm saying, you know, it is good to always aim to be on time, but at the same time, you know, I do more than my fair share. So that's the implication there, right? So the next one, false accusation. You have unfairly spread gossip, right? Response. Well, hurting someone's feelings is definitely not and would never be my intention. I'm empathizing with the problem. Now, can you tell me more about the accusation? Person says, no, I can't, have confidential. So, okay, fine. I mean, they could be just full of it, right? They could be completely lying. It doesn't matter, right? Your response. Well, I'm unaware of anything that I would have said that could have been offensive, right? Regardless, I'll be sure to be more careful and even more positive than usual in the future. Once again, I'm solving the problem, even if there is no problem, even if it's not my fault, it doesn't matter. I'm aiming to be the classiest person in the room, to settle it down, to work through it, to be okay. Respecting myself, not agreeing to the accusation, but at the same time, agreeing to the intention, agreeing to empathizing with the problem, agreeing to fixing it, making it better regardless. Last one. You did it wrong. You know, whatever it is, you've made a mistake, you've done it wrong. Well, clearly there has been a mistake. And of course, we want to avoid them and provide a professional service, right? Empathizing with the problem. As far as I know, I followed the precise instructions given to me in the original email. Right? That's an implied asking for proof. So you don't always have to ask for proof. You can just sort of imply it. It's obviously implied there was an email and so forth. There was a second email which had some inconsistencies with the instructions of the first email. And I did seek written clarification on date X and Y, but did not get any response, more implied asking for proof. Now, since the deadline was approaching, I followed the original instructions. However, here's where we let them off the hook, right? So just when you're there to sort of go, I've got you, now it's about harmony. Right? You've set your boundary, you've got your respect, you're saying, I'm not going to be pushed over, walked over, and now you let it go. However, in the future, I'll aim to run it by you in person if you think it's going to help, or something similar to that. Now, what's important here is all of these examples are, they're not exactly your situation, of course, right? Because I don't know your situation, of course, but obviously it's about just understanding these principles, especially the principles, and all of these things can be modified to fit the situation. But the whole idea is protecting your boundaries, never agreeing to an accusation, always defending yourself, but defending yourself casually, calmly, empathizing with the intent, empathizing with the issue, and then aiming to solve the problem, to be a problem solver, without agreeing that you've done anything wrong, right? Or we will solve it, or we're going to solve it. And you may end up doing nothing. That's the point. The point is that you're defending yourself the right way. Now, final thing before we move on is this idea of bad scheduling. Obviously, I had to bring it up since people kept saying schedules are horrible. I just want to give you a few quick tips here. You should, why you should still leave earlier, okay? This kept coming up in the surveys. Are those in charge likely to continually change their mind and make the project run late anyway? I got this so much in the surveys. It's a mess, it's chaos. They change their mind every 5 seconds. So if you know that, then maybe you should just leave anyway, right? Because you know it's going to change in 5 minutes later or tomorrow anyway. Just something to think about. Next thing is, will you actually be effective by staying back late as often as you do? Will you actually be effective, right? And probably not, because you're starting to give up other aspects of your life. So it's going to affect your work. Third thing is Parkinson's law. So can I truly focus and adhere to the rules of Parkinson's law? Basically, time expands and contracts based on the time you've allotted to the task. Okay, so if your goal is to, so I'm leaving today at 5:45. I'm supposed to 5:30 is the finish time. I'm definitely out of here by 5:45 or 6 o'clock, whatever it is. Then I'm leaving, and it happens. If you're focused on it, you'll make it happen more times than not, right? Especially if you have an appointment. Isn't that funny? If you have an appointment, you got to pick up the kids, or you've got a doctor's appointment. You'll make it happen. Something to think about. Now, start small. If your confidence needs to be built up, as often it does, especially if you're someone that never leaves on time, someone that's used to just towing the line in that way. And just commit to just 1 to 2 days of leaving at a good time initially, but just focus on the goal, make it happen. And most importantly, here's my secret tip here, wherever possible, is find as many colleagues as possible to agree to join you in leaving at the same time. So unionize, come together, make a little pact with you and another person or 2 people. 3 people say, okay, this Thursday we all leave by 6 p.m. no matter what, right? And the more you have going with you, the more it becomes a norm, the more it becomes normal. Now, I know this is hard, right? But it's not. I mean, so many times I've taught people that they can do this, and 99% of the time, if not 100% of the time, nothing ever happens, right? People just learn, oh, okay, this person has enough self-respect to leave when they want to and when they should. And that's the idea. Same with myself in my own career. When I've worked in jobs, I've always just left on time, except for very rare occasions, right? It just was normal, right? From day one, that's what they did, right? So you the standard, your self-respect determines how people look at you, what they expect from you, and what you expect from yourself. So congratulations, we've covered all the key points.